Hello again. So this is American Horror Story Part 2. Before I go in, just say hi, my name's Debs. You haven't been here before. If you have been here before, welcome back. But yeah, so I'm looking at American Horror Story because I've been binge watching it. I started off by watching series 3 around about the time it originally came out. And then during lockdown I then went and watched season 4. And then I went back to the beginning and watched season 1 and 2. And now I'm on season 5. So I'm going through the seasons in the order they initially came out rather than the order that I watched it, because that would just get confusing. I've already got a video about Murder House. I can't call it Horror House for some bizarre reason. But yeah, so Murder House, I'll pop a little link somewhere up to that video if you haven't seen it yet. And now I'm talking about Asylum. I'll admit, of all the seasons I've watched so far, Asylum is at the bottom, I think, in regards to enjoyment. Because, I mean, I did enjoy it, but some of it was just a bit, because I like the initial premise of it. I mean, in the first episode, you've got a guy who is taken to the asylum, and everybody thinks he's this infamous serial killer, but he's not. And the bit that I wasn't the biggest fan of in this season ties into his story. So in this season you've got Zachary Quinto as Dr. Oliver Thredson, Joseph, I can never pronounce the surname, is it Fiennes as Monsignor Timothy Howard, Sarah Paulson as Lana Winters, Evan Peters as Kit Walker, that's who I've just been talking about, Kit, Lily Rabe as Sister Mary Eunice McKee, Lizzie Brochere, it's got an accent on it so I'm not quite sure, as Grace Bertrand, James Cromwell as Dr. Arthur Arden, and Jessica Lang as Sister Jude Martin. So that's the main core people. And then in the recurring you've got Naomi Grossman as Pepper, who I've already seen in Freak Show, so I know what happened to Pepper before she ended up in Asylum. It all gets very confusing with the way this is all done, because there's always a tie into other seasons. So yeah, I already knew Pepper's story going in to this season thanks to watching everything out of order. So Kit ends up in the asylum because everybody thinks that he's a infamous serial killer, which the audience knows pretty much straight away that he's not. Sarah Paulson as Lana Winters, she's going in to kind of investigate and kind of find out how they're treating people. She's basically looking for a story about the place, and well, to be honest, she wants an interview with Kit. That's what she mostly goes in there for, but then she ends up as a patient. Big part of the storyline that I just wasn't the biggest fan of was the alien storyline. It just seemed to come, I say it came out of nowhere, it's like the first thing you saw, because you look at Kit and his wife and stuff, and suddenly his wife disappears, and you're very much the thing of like, is this aliens or is it something that's trying to pretend to be aliens? So you got aliens in there from the get-go pretty much. That little coming back to the alien storyline, it just seemed a bit jarring in relationship to the rest of the story. I think my favourite person this season was probably Sister Mary, played by Lily Rabe. I've fallen in love with Lily Rabe thanks to this whole thing, seeing kind of the different characters that she plays and everything. Yeah, she's just brilliant. So other Lily Rabe fans out there, I'm on your side. I think she's brilliant. They had like the little nods to like Exorcist movies, but particularly The Exorcist, and I thought it was really clever how they had a nun be possessed. I just thought, of course that's the way they're going to go, because it's American Horror Story. This season, what season is this set in? Set in 64. It begins in 1964 at the fictional mental institution Briarcliff Manor and follows the stories of the staff and inmates who occupy it. Like the first season, throughout each episode you learn about the individual characters, you learn their story, how they got there. This season, the character that I really didn't like and thought he's going to have a good ending was Zachary Quinto in it, because he just plays such a perfect, horrible, slimy man, and that's saying it loosely. It was just, again, Frances Conroy just steals every single scene she's in. I think she just has a habit of doing that. She's just incredible. But as you go through the seasons, because this one, it flips between 60s and present day, so you kind of, as you go through, you find out what's happening to some of the characters in present day, especially towards the end of the season, and you start to see what happens to Lana from, in the first episode, wanting to interview Kit Walker because she thinks he's this infamous serial killer, to then being admitted as a patient, and then kind of where her story ends up in the modern day with her not being Wycliffe anymore, and her telling her story and the story of other people. As usual, like in the final episode, everybody kind of gets their comeuppance. If they were generally a good person, they have a fairly nice ending, and then the people who were really horrible and stuff got theirs. That last episode, because it's that thing of just like, it's like when I talk about my books, I don't want to spoil everything, but at the same time, I imagine most people watching these videos will have actually seen everything and will be expecting me to talk about certain things. But yeah, just basically, while she's in there, while Lana is in there, she is raped. At the end, when you figure out what happened to the baby and where he ends up, the story between Lana and the boy when he grows up, when you see him in the modern day, the way that ended was quite satisfying, I'll say that. Because it's just like, there was only one thing that Lana could do in that situation. When all of that unfolded, it was just like, this really was the only way that it could have happened. I have realised that it takes a lot to make me jump now. I think also the fact that it's called American Horror Story, it means that I was going prepared for jump scares and gross stuff, so it didn't really faze me as much. But I must admit, on the gross bodily fluid type stuff, it doesn't seem as bad as like a hotel, which I'll get to when I get to. Asylum, it was good. It just, of all the ones that I've watched so far, I'd put it at the bottom, and the only reason for that is the alien storyline. That's the only reason why I popped that at the bottom of my list in regards to all the seasons. I'm not quite sure what I'd put at the top, but I did really enjoy the first season, just because it just went straight in with that classic murder house, haunted house thing, which was just the perfect way to start it all off. But yeah, that's some of my thoughts on Asylum. Ugh, yeah, it was a journey, Asylum. I think all of them are journeys anyway. It was just the alien storyline that I thought that was just a bit jarring in regards to the rest of it. Because if they'd focused more on, I'd say, the haunting of the asylum. Technically, it is the haunting of the asylum when you take in the modern day scenes, because it feels like it is being haunted, even though it's a real person. But it is essentially kind of looking at the, I say inmates, it looks at the patients of the asylum and how they are all affected by the events in it and the really, really horrible people at the helm of this asylum. But yeah, good season. The aliens just took me out of it, that's all. And, you know, it wasn't just kind of like a one-off thing. It was because that was how it started. That's how it starts Kit's story. So obviously they had to bring it back round again to finish off his storyline. And I'll admit, the way they brought it back round again was clever, but that whole storyline just, when the alien stuff came back in again, it was just like, are they going to find a way to bring this back to the asylum? But no, it's just aliens. But yeah, so that's all my thoughts on American Horror Story Season 2 Asylum. The next one will be Coven, which is the season that I started off my journey with American Horror Story with. I watched Asylum first because it was announced that Kathy Bates was joining the cast for it, and I adore Kathy Bates, so I was just like, I'm gonna have to give this one a go. But yeah, I'll talk about that more in the video that I make for Coven. So that's going to be a fun one to unpack as well. So thank you so much for watching. As I said, the next one will be Coven, so keep your eyes peeled for that one. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe if you're not already. There'll be a little reminder on the screen, and if you want to know exactly when I upload, you can click the bell notifications. I upload every single Wednesday. Thanks again, and I will see you next week for another video. Stay safe, everybody.